You're over here. We each get our own couch. That's hospitality for you. How you
How
doing?
you guys doing?
Jinx.
Hi.
Hi.
You just told me your name, but
Heather.
Heather.
Yeah.
You are Heather. Doesn't she have amazing hair?
Oh my God, genetic. Thank you
She
so
does,
much.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I just did it a couple days ago. It's all new.
Awesome.
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah. I was saying to a couple of guys I met, a little jet lag because I came kind of from Asia to the UK to London, then up to Scotland, then back to London, then to Wales, then back to London, and then over here. So a little bit this morning, like, where am I? But apart from that, I travel a lot, so I'm kind of used to it. But jet lag's real. You can't get away from it. But apart from that, I'm great.
Is there anything that you can do or take for jet lag? I remember seeing these pills. I don't know.
I don't know. I used to be better at it. I think. But I think I've been traveling so much this year that there's no formula for it. I know that if I'm coming over to say LA from London, I can manage that. But if I'm coming from all the way around the other side of the world to the UK and then round, it's like, that's going to get you.
Yeah, I think we need to invent something, and then we'll pitch it to what is it, Shark Tank, Dragon's Den, all of that.
Yeah.
So, all right,
yeah. We'll work on that.
Yeah, we're gonna work on that. Okay, I kind of wanted to start by something a little bit off the beaten path. Something that I'm really curious about for people that perform Shakespeare, theater superstitions. Do you have any theater superstitions? Will you say the Scottish play? Will you not? Ghost lights, whistling. What we got?
You kind of don't really say. You say the Scottish play. You don't say Macbeth in the theatre. And do you know the reason why?
I have at some point, but please remind me.
The reason why is because back in the day, years and years ago, if you were in a play and you heard people walking around whispering Macbeth, it would mean that your play was going to get cancelled because Macbeth was the play they would always put on if another play wasn't successful. So if you open a play and you hear Macbeth being whispered in the background, it meant that your show is going to be taken off. So that's the superstition. If you say Macbeth, it means the play's not going well. And then the other one is whistling, right? Yeah. And that's to do with, back in the day again, they used to have people on they call it the fly floor, where they would use ropes to bring in the curtains. And in order to give the fly guys their cue, you'd whistle. So that's why you never whistle in the theater, because it's bad luck, because it means that somebody might, bring down the curtain on your head or something.
That doesn't sound great.
No.
Do you prefer the Scottish play over saying Macca's, or is there not really
Yeah, because Macca's sounds like McDonald's.
Oh, but that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love McDonald's right now.
I think also I spent a lot of time with a lot of older actors when I started doing theatre, and they were always like, oh, Scottish play, So you kind of fall into their traditions and stuff, and so yeah, you would never really mention that word in the theatre, yeah, or whistle. I think whistling's not so bad now, but mentioning Macca's is a no-no, especially to the older actors. They're like, don't say that word. Yeah.
I think I can't whistle, so I'm all set on that one. Obviously, there's a lot of Shakespearean productions that do have a horror element as part of it.
Yeah.
Since we're here at Nightmare Weekend,
Yeah.
do you have a favorite Shakespearean production with a bit of a horror underline?
Well, I think Macbeth, right? For one, we're not in a theatre. That's good.
Yeah. We can say it, guys. We're
good. But the witches in Macbeth, so much today, so much horror folklore is based off that, which I love. And then the ghost of Hamlet's father. I saw this great production once at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and there's this wonderful actor called Greg Hicks playing the ghost of Hamlet's father. And when he came on, we're all sitting in the audience, and there was just this big runway made of metal that went up onto the stage. And when you went in to watch it, you're like, why is this runway here? And then during the bit when the ghost of Hamlet's father comes on, he's he was covered all in white, like white powder, with just a small little loincloth covering him, dragging this huge broadsword all the way up this metal ramp onto the stage. And it was so haunting. The physicality of this actor was amazing. And I remember going wow, that's really cool. Yeah, but I love the witches, for one, in the Scottish play. So much today is taken from that. Even Hocus Pocus, the three witches, right? That's got a connection to Shakespeare somewhere. Yeah.
So was doing these theater productions, because I know you also did a production of Les Mis as well. I'm a theater kid, so sorry, I have to
Yeah.
get this out of the way. Was that kind of first, and then you transitioned into doing like film and TV and stuff, or?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I played the little boy in Les Miserables, and then when I went to school, it wasn't cool to be an actor where I grew up, so I didn't do much then. And then I eventually got back into it and fell in love with theatre and Shakespeare. And for the first 10 years of my career, it was mostly theatre with some movies and some television in between. And then I think it was 2009, we did a production of Hamlet where I played Horatio to Jude Law's Hamlet. And then we took it to Elsinore, which is the castle which it's set in Denmark. And we did it in the castle with the Prince of Denmark there and like on the battlements. It was great. And then we transferred it to Broadway, and then that's when I got my American agent, and then did a bunch more kind of American commercial TV.
Oh my God, I love that so much. So when did Constantine come about in your career?
It's funny because my first job in America was a show called Criminal Minds, and I got that. We were actually doing Hamlet on Broadway, and then I went to LA after that and got Criminal Minds. And a similar thing happened, I think it was like 3 or 4 years later. I was working with Jude Law again, doing Henry V, and I had long hair, a bit longer than I have now, with a big beard, playing this Welsh warrior, Llywelyn, the character Llywelyn. And this audition came up for this TV show, Constantine. So I did an audition with the casting director, and they take a tape of it and sent it off to America. And the producers really liked it, but the studio couldn't really see because I had like a big beard and long hair. So I ended up doing 13 different audition tapes for the role, but still they couldn't quite see it. They wanted me to fly over there to meet them, but I was doing a play in London, and there was no way I could just drop that and go over there. So luckily for me, it was 1 month actually until we finished, and I think they saw 400 people. And luckily, by the end of when the play finished, the role was still available, and they said, "Will you fly over and meet us?" So the day the show ended, we went out. We had an after party. We all got extremely drunk. I jumped on a plane in the morning, flew over to Los Angeles. It was actually a public holiday as well, and so I needed to cut my hair, but there were no hairdressers. So I had to get my friend to come all the way from, I think he was over the other side of LA, to come and cut my hair. I shaved my beard off, and then eventually got the role, yeah. So it was a bit of a process.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of process, like preparing for something like a live theater production versus preparing for a role like Constantine, is your method the same?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I mean, you do as much research in the subject matter as possible, and as much character work as you can, and then I think the major difference is, with the play, you have more time to prepare before you get to the rehearsal room, and then you have a whole rehearsal process. With TV, from the moment we did the pilot, the first episode, to when we knew the show was going, I was reading all that stuff. But then as soon as the show started, you're bang into it, and you've got to learn fast on the spot because you get new scripts all the time. So the technique is different when you're into it, but the preparation is kind of all comes from the same place as well. Acting is acting really, no matter what medium you're in. But with a play, you get the wonderful benefit of having a rehearsal room where you can basically be really bad and nobody can see you. Yeah.
And obviously you got to sit with this character of Constantine for a long time. So how did that evolve for you personally? Especially with crossovers and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, first from, being on my own show on Constantine to then, thinking that the character was done. And then I did an episode of Arrow. And then I thought I was done. Then I did an animated movie, and I thought it was done. So there's that great line. I always say this, but there was this great line in The Godfather Part 3 when it's like, as soon as Al Pacino's character Michael Corleone says, "As soon as I think I'm out, they pull me back in." And I felt like that because we only did 13 episodes, 1 season of Constantine, but then I only stopped playing him last year when I did my last voice recording for Crisis on Infinite Earths, the animated version. So it was 10 years. So I really really enjoy the character a lot. I'm sorry, I didn't answer your question. Did
No,
I?
but that was a great answer, whatever you answered. Yeah, works
Oh,
for me.
thanks.
Yeah, I think it was the
I think my
perfect
jet lag
answer.
brain just went, wait, where am I? Miami? What time is it now?
Well, obviously, like you mentioned, you did a lot of these crossovers. Was
Oh,
there
yeah,
a crossover that you would like to see? And maybe, again, because we're at a horror convention, if it could cross over with like a horror franchise, where would you like to see
It would have been
Constantine?
nice to have done something on Supernatural, I think.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because I think that when I first came onto Legends of Tomorrow, I had the car. I was using the car that they use, and then the car popped up later in another episode. That would have been fun. Swamp Thing was on television at some point, and I loved that show. And I was just like, "Come on, man! We got it," because that's where Constantine was born, right? I think it was in 1985 in issue 37 of I think it's 37. My brain. It's a little wobbly today, but yeah, and that would have been great. And with the crossovers, what's funny is when I came onto Legends, I'd heard about these crossovers and kind of how crazy they were for the scheduling. Because you have 5 different shows and they're pulling all the different people, and how they managed to do that was just like such an unbelievable feat. And I was like, well, I'm interested in doing it, yeah, but I don't know where John would fit into the storyline that they're looking for. And Mark Guggenheim turned up on set one day and handed me the scene between me and Lucifer. And I was like, dude, yes, that's how it's going to work. And so it was really fun, And I love the way, in all fairness to Phil Klemmer and all of the producers and everybody on Legends, how they really tried to serve the character of John Constantine. Obviously, it's a very different show, Legends of Tomorrow, to what Constantine was. But they really did, give the character some great storylines, pulled from the comics, albeit they were adapted. But they really did try to serve the character, and I think they did a great job in that.
What was it like getting to be part of these beautiful ensemble crossover casts?
I was great, yeah. Well, the funny thing is I had worked, so I worked with Brandon, who was a Superman. Then there was Tyler, who was in the crossover. So I'm in a room with Tyler and Brandon. I'm like, that's 2 Supermen. And years ago, I did a TV show called The Tudors, and I worked with Henry Cavill, who was Superman. So I'm standing there going like, I've worked with 3 Supermen.
That's a record.
Pretty cool. Yeah. It was fun.
Get you in the Guinness for that. I love that.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, though, this is a Q&A, so if at any point y'all have questions, feel free. Come to the microphone. Whatever you guys want to ask, now is your opportunity. Okay, I wanted to ask, because you mentioned like the show Supernatural. I want to know, and obviously Constantine deals with the supernatural as well, but have you ever had like a supernatural out-of-body experience or anything like that?
I've had a few strange moments in my life, A friend of mine actually, he has a company called Improper Books, and he writes his own comics and stuff. And he's a huge John Constantine fan. And when he found out that I was auditioning for Constantine, he was like, right, let me tell you a little bit about this character. And we were shooting a movie, he was producing it, and I was staying at his house, and it's this old manor in Stratford-upon-Avon where Shakespeare lived and where the Royal Shakespeare Company is. And it's this old manor, and it's all creaky wood, and this little huge garden like that goes down to the lake, and it's kind of spooky, And I remember I was like walking out the back sometime, and I looked up in the light, and I was like, what's that? And it was just this bright light, and it just went, I was like, okay. So that was a strange experience. The other one that I had actually on the set of Constantine, we were shooting in Atlanta, and this was just a weird moment, right? We were shooting in Atlanta. We were in this old mausoleum, and we were shooting inside it, and it was nighttime, night shoot. And it's a big, huge graveyard. And they got the big lights outside, so it looks eerie, And one of the runners who was like on patrol in the graveyard came up to me in between shots and was like, you're not going to believe this, but there's actually a gravestone with Constantine on it in the graveyard. I was like, no shit. So I went on to the, carry on shooting. I said, look, when I get like 10 minutes, let's go and have a look. So there's me and her like creeping off with torches into the night, like in this mausoleum in this graveyard in Atlanta. And it was literally like a gravestone that said Constantine, and it was almost in the same font that we were using for the phone, for the TV show. And there was like a bunch of other Constantines, like slabs on the floor. So it was a whole family of Constantines. And I was like, that's just like uncanny and like really, really weird. And I was a bit naughty because there's a great comic book cover when John's sitting next to a gravestone smoking a cigarette and there's a demon hand coming out to get him. So I kind of recreated the picture. And then afterwards I was like, I'm not so sure I should have done that, you know, like it's a bit spooky. But there's little things like that, yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, we have our first friend with the question. Hey, what's your name?
Hey, man.
Hello, my name is Noah.
Hi.
And my question is, what was it like going from like your ordinary screen acting to the motion capture in Assassin's Creed?
That was really fascinating, man. Like, when I first heard about Assassin's Creed, it wasn't called Assassin's Creed. I was auditioning for a pirate show, a pirate TV show. My agent was like, "This is great pirate TV show." I was like, "I love pirates. I want to go in for it." So I went in and I read for the role. And then they were like, "We really like you. We'd like you to come back, but we've got to tell you, this isn't a pirate TV show. It's a video game." And at the time, this was like when they first just started to do motion capture. And I knew the franchise because I had played the original Assassin's Creed game years ago. So I was like, great, you know? But I thought it was just going to be the voice. And then, you know, when I got the job, I literally ended up in Montreal to film. And you've got this camera on your head and you feel like a dog with a muzzle. And, you know, it takes a little bit of getting used to before, you know, you can get into the flow. But, and also you're in a very tight Lycra suit. So, you know, the other actors you're working with, you know, there's no shame. You can't because you're like, "Hey guys, yeah." Like, I'm supposed to be a cool pirate and I'm in a tight Lycra suit, you know. But you get used to the process, and I found it really, really interesting. And I feel like, you know, when you're a kid and I used to run around on the village green, and you know, you'd pick up a stick that looked like a gun or something, or a sword, and you'd play with it. And it was like you had to use your imagination like that because they would have these different props with dots on them, and you had to say, well, it's a sword, now it's a gun, and you had to really use your imagination in that same way that you did as a kid. So I really like the process, and I'd like to do more of it now. The only thing was, when we first started, the helmet that they used to tighten it so hard that after about 30, 45 minutes of working, you'd get a really bad headache. I think it's a lot better now.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Question. Hey, what's your name?
Hello, I'm Perry. I've heard rumor that Keanu Reeves was considering returning to the screen in that role. I was wondering if A, you two have ever gotten together and talked Constantine, or if you watch or deliberately do not watch his performances of your character.
Well, it's funny because I was doing a Comic-Con in Connecticut not so long ago. And Keanu Reeves was doing a signing for his comic book that called Berserker, I think, in the room next door. But he was only there for like 30 minutes or something. I was like, oh my God, me and Keanu. And I'm a huge fan of Keanu Reeves, you know. But we didn't get to meet. And apparently somebody had said to him, "Hey, did you know that the other Constantine is in the next room?" And I don't think that he even knew that there was a TV show, sadly.
Now he does.
Like, damn. But no, I watched the movie years ago and loved it. And then when I came to do the role, I consciously decided not to rewatch it, because I wanted to just focus on the comic books and draw from that, you know. And I feel as well that they're quite different interpretations of the character. And I love the movie, you know, and I'm excited to see what he does, what they do with the movie as well, you know, when they do another one. And I'm a huge fan of his, and Akiva Goldman as well, who's the producer and the writer on that. So, you know, I feel with these things, you know, John Constantine's such an iconic character, and I played him nearly 10 years, right? But I don't feel like an ownership over him. I just feel lucky enough that I've been part of all of the people who will or have brought him to screen and told stories about him. And obviously, I would love to play him more, you know? Maybe there's some crossover in the future with whatever James Gunn does with it, and I turn up on a Zimmer frame with a cigarette, you know, like as an older who knows? Or, you know, I love the character. I've read all the comics, and so I'm a fan of his. And I think whatever they do with it, I will be a fan and supportive of that. And yeah, I just don't feel like there's any kind of competition really. I just feel like lucky enough as an actor to be able to kind of like filled his shoes and brought him to life for, you know, the people who love him. And now I'm a fan of his because I've read the comics, you know.
Well, I guess the next film will show us what he's going to steal from you. So,
Thank you.
Hey,
Hi.
love the outfit. What's your name?
Oh, thank you.
That's
My
great.
name is Sumaya. Hi.
Hi.
So my question for you is, your portrayal of John Constantine in the TV show captured the complexity of his character, balancing his dark, cynical side with his strong sense of responsibility. So my question is, how did you approach bringing that internal conflict into life, and how did you ensure that Constantine's struggles with guilt, responsibility, and redemption remained relatable and authentic to the audience?
Wow, that's such a wonderfully articulated question and a great question. Thank you. Do you know what I think is, in a way, like, I have to give credit to the writers because they're the ones whose words you use, you know. If it's not on the page, you have to work so hard to try and bring all of the qualities you're talking to the fore. But if it's good writing, it's easy. You know, it makes it much easier for the actor. Obviously, I'd read as many comics as I could before I started. And while we were shooting Constantine, I was still reading them. And actually, during shooting, I had to stop because some of them are like dark and twisted, wonderfully dark and twisted. But, you know, I was playing him 14 hours on camera every day and then going home and opening up, you know, about him talking to a demon, and then I was, you know, dreaming about it. I was like, actually, you know, I need a little bit of downtime here. So, but I think that I have to say it's down to the writers, the way they write him. Like, I got so much from the comic books. You know, if you're creating a character, it's different. You work, you know, you can bring a lot of different elements to it then. But I think when, you know, it's been written and drawn by so many wonderful writers and artists over the years that for me it was just, how can I glean? How can I just let him kind of like come to me and then see how that embodies me? And then when the writing is good from the writers, it gives it to you. And then I think that I'm lucky enough that from the training that I've had as an actor, you know, I have a toolbox. When I went to drama school, they always used to say, we don't teach you one method or one way of doing something. What we're going to do is give you a toolbox. So for each job, no matter what medium, you can say, I'm going to use this bit and I'm going to use... And luckily, you know, I'd done a lot of theater. I'd done over 25 plays by then. And I'd been in drama school for 3 years. And I was in college for 2.5 years before that, studying acting. So all of that stuff was at my disposal to apply to the writing that was coming along, you know. And I think that if you give yourself over to the character, then it can come through you, and you know, you bring a bit of yourself too. But I would have to credit like the writers on Constantine and on Legends as well. Like they really there was a couple of producers who really knew the character really well, and there was a couple of instances sometimes when I'd be on like a different crossover or a different show, I'd be like, this doesn't quite work. His rhythm, his cadence, you know, the way that he, you know, is one way to people, but something else is going on. The duality of his behavior or his feelings or his conflicts, sometimes that wasn't quite right, but I knew him so well that I was able to just adjust those slightly as well. And I think that everybody that I worked with while playing the character was open to me kind of, you know, working through that with them as well. And it's a collaboration. So I feel really lucky about that, yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm hoping we can still see Constantine in future projects. So I'm a huge fan, so I'm hoping we can. So
Thank you.
very
Never say never. It's one thing I learned in this business. Never say never. All these Constantines.
So good. This is amazing. Hey, what's your name, friend?
I'm Jeffrey.
Hey, Jeffrey.
I wanted to ask, for the whole 13 episodes that you've played of Constantine, which one was your favorite and which one was your least favorite?
So what happened was, is I feel like when we first started the show, I started reading Dangerous Habits. I think David S. Goyer and Daniel Cerrone said, look, this is point of entry here. And I started reading that and then a bunch more. And I remember meeting up with one of the producers, with Daniel, the producer, and him saying, listen, this isn't going to be what you really want it to be in a certain way because it's network television. Because for me, when I was reading those comics, I was like, this is awesome. It's dark, it's twisted, it's funny. Like, and he was just trying to say, like, look, network television, there's only so much you can do. But the one thing that I think that we slightly got wrong but adjusted was trying to make it like a Demon of the Week kind of show, like a procedural. You know, I felt like once the stories became personal for John, that's when I really felt it starting to roll. There's a couple of episodes, like I felt episode 4, A Feast of Friends, which is directly drawn out of the, I think it's issue 2, called Hunger. And John ends up trapping a demon inside his friend, you know, and sacrifices his friend. And the actor who played the character of Gary, he was a very good friend of mine, and we'd worked at the Royal Shakespeare Company together, and he got this role, and I was like, this is amazing. And I felt that that's when I really started to feel like I knew the character, because it was personal. I felt when John was going out chasing it, it was like more like a procedural kind of cop detective, supernatural detective show, whereas the comics were serialized. You know, they were always personal. John's always trying to run away from it, and then next minute there's a demon after him, and he has to solve a problem. And I felt once we started to lean into that stuff a bit more, that's when I really started to feel like we were really getting into the meat and bones of the character and of Hellblazer. And so there was episode 4, A Feast of Friends, and then there was also episode 8 and 9, the Saint, a two-parter called The Saint of Last Resorts. And it's when John has to trap the demon Pazuzu inside him. And his relationship with Anne-Marie, who's the nun in that, was another thing that was really personal. And then the other favorite one was episode 13. As that was, I think all the ones that were directly taken out of the comic books, you know, like, because they were such good stories and they were adapted. And I felt that those were the ones that felt most personal for John. And I felt that with John, it's always personal, you know, so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers. Hey, bud.
What's your name?
My name's Gil. I wanted to ask you, Matt, that you've had the opportunity to work as Constantine both in live action and with voiceover work. Between doing those two, do you have a preference between how you had to get into a booth and record your lines, or do you prefer to be more physical and on a set with other co-workers?
You know, doing the live action is always the best. I feel like, yeah, that's always, you get so much satisfaction of embodying the character. But ultimately, it's all the same. You know, the character's still the same. I think that you don't have the confines of the pressures of the time when you run a television show, where the camera is, all those techniques. You're in a booth, and it's all about the voice and, you know, trying to bring the expression to the voice of the character. But I found that kind of easy in a way because I played him for a while. So for me, it was like, great, I just get to do it here. There was one point when I thought maybe I'll bring the trench coat into the booth, you know, but I didn't. But I really enjoyed doing all those animated movies. I think I was actually the first actor to cross over to like live action. From live action into the animated, which I thought was really cool, you know. And also, you can do so many different things with animated than you can in live action, you know. And those guys, I think, at DC, with all the animated movies, the 10 years, the runs they did on all of them, I think that they blew all that out of the park, man. Like DC, like really, really killed it, and I'm really proud to have been a part of that. But the live action's always best, isn't it? You know, apart from getting your hair dyed blonde every 2 weeks, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I think it was great that you were called to do both, because usually when voiceover work is done, usually they call a different voice actor to do the portrayal that a live action actor would because of time or schedule conflicts. but
Yeah.
It was great that you got to do both.
Yeah, it
of
was
those.
cool. I remember when we were in, the first one I did, City of Demons, that was after I did Arrow. So I was like, okay, well, that's done. Full stop on John Constantine again. And then there was that. And then some of the later ones I did, I was actually filming in Vancouver, on the set of Legends. And then I'd go to the studio and so I was in the character, playing the character every day, and I found that really cool. And there's a great team of guys who did those movies, the producer, the voice director, Wes Gleason, who was absolutely awesome, and so many other great creatives involved with that. And yeah, I'd love to do more.
Yeah, well, we hope to see you again soon as Constantine or in
Thank
any
you,
other
dude.
project as well.
Thank you.
Hey,
Good to see you again.
what's your name?
My name's Colin. So I wanted to ask, as the lead in one of the, still, honestly, the best pirate game ever made, why do you think it's so hard for all these studios, all these years later, to make a good pirate game? Why have we gotten flop after flop ever since Black Flag?
Well, I don't know. I think that what I loved about Black Flag was, I was familiar with the franchise, and what's great about when I got that job is my research was going and playing all the games. So I remember sitting in my room. I was living with two other actors at the time, and they're working on scripts or auditions and things like that. And I'm literally sitting in my room playing video games, and they're like, "Man, aren't you going to do something constructive?" And I'm like, "I'm doing research, okay, for my role." And I just love that. And it's the same with Constantine, right? With comics, like reading this is my work. I love that about what we do. Or history, when I've done Shakespeare plays, Henry V, the 100 Years' Wars. Like I researched all of that, and then I had time, so I decided to go back to 1066. And I just love that because I've kind of educated myself that way. But I can't speak to any other pirate games, but the one thing I think about Black Flag is the character arc in a way, and especially for an assassin, for Assassin's Creed, he starts off as a rogue, a little John Constantine, a rogue, and he wants to seek his own glory and, his riches. And then he goes on a journey where he ends up becoming an assassin. And I think personally, for me playing the game and for me playing the character, that character arc is what makes that special. I also think that the gameplay in that game it still stands up now. I mean, I still play it. So, I think it's great. The setting, the fact that everything is like historically correct. I had to research pirates for like 3 months. It was great. I got to know all the characters, like I read all the books. And Darby McGivitt, who wrote the script, like everything was historically accurate. And I just loved it about that. So I don't know if there are other pirate games out there which don't embrace the history or the physics engines of the gameplay isn't as good. But I know that with Black Flag, when I played it, they sent me the game and I played it for the first time, and I was blown away by the immediacy of how you're thrust into the game and you have to learn on the go. I think it was either Odyssey or Origins when you have to walk around, press a button, a door opens, and I was just like bored with it. With Black Flag, you're on a ship, you're in the water, and then you're into a narrative, a cutscene where you're into a narrative and you get connected to this character. And I really like the character arc. So I can't speak to others, but I can say that doing Black Flag and playing Black Flag, I think that the character arc and the narrative of the character and the story is what holds up that game.
And speaking of that, I think one of the best moments in the game is when you are fighting side by side with Blackbeard, and then you get that absolute shocking moment where Blackbeard loses his head. So what was it like doing that scene?
There's the actor that played Blackbeard was a wonderful British actor called Mark Bonner. And because it was motion capture, I mean, you're in a room, right? Like as big as this, with all cameras around you, and you're in tight Lycra suits. But we would sit around, talk. It's like doing theater. I always felt like doing the motion capture was like doing theater, because they can put the camera wherever they want after, because they've recorded it from all the angles. So as an actor, you don't have to go, the camera is there, where do you play? You just play the scene as if you're on the stage, right? And then they do the camera stuff later. And so getting to work with Mark Bonner, who was absolutely wonderfully terrifying as Blackbeard. And, he made me up my game as Edward. And Ralph Innes. That was the guy whose name I couldn't remember earlier on because of my jet lag. He played Vane. You know, these are like really, really good actors. And I was quite young at the time, you know. And to work with these actors and, you know, feel like, you got to, you know, elevate and up your game. And I think that they did a real good job of the casting for that. But what a moment when that happens, you know. And I think you can kind of see that in the actual scene that happens. It's like, you know, like it's cool stuff to play, man. Pirates, come on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cheers, Colin.
So obviously, like you mentioned, you did quite a bit of research. How would you have fared as an actual pirate?
Oh, I think I would have been great, but I'd probably been shit. No,
That's
I
it.
would have loved to have been a pirate. I know. I feel like I don't know. I researching pirates, you just think like, okay, what a brutal, cutthroat world in a way. But there was a sense of like democracy in a way that we don't even have now amongst them. You know. Like the way, and they were in the Caribbean. You know, you would have had to be like me now with my skill set. I'd be fish food. Let's be honest. You know, okay, I can sword fight a little bit. You know, I can do a little bit of combat. But these guys were like experts, and they were killers, and like they knew how to sail ships. Like I couldn't sail a ship for my life, you know. But these guys had like real skill sets. What happened was like back in the day, people were pressed into the Navy. They were pressed into service. So, you know, if you did a small crime or something, they'd press you into service. They'd force you to go work for the Royal Navy. And then they'd take you on ship, they'd train you up. And a lot of these pirates became people who got disillusioned with the Royal Navy and kind of wanted to kind of get a cut of, you know, the loot themselves, you know, and started this whole thing. So, yeah, I'd like to think that I would be good at it. But I think with our modern skill set compared to those guys, I'd be fish food.
We believe in you.
Okay. Yeah. I believe in me too.
Good, good. I was also going to say, since, you know, a couple of the questions people were, you know, emulating, they were cosplaying as your roles. Let's say that you have a rare day off, right? And you get to attend a convention as a fan.
Yeah.
Who would you cosplay as?
Well, I was going to, because I've got the whole John Constantine outfit in my, it's actually in storage. It's somewhere in Wales. But, yeah, I managed to get, like, the whole Constantine outfit. Actually, these are the boots. Yeah.
Nice.
So I needed a new pair of boots when I was coming over, and I just stopped. I was like, shit, just grab those. And these are the boots that I wore as John Constantine. Look, they're all meshed up. Isn't that? I don't know.
eBay
See,
or
they're all
like-
broken, man. Like I think they still got Constantine in them somewhere as well. But I love the boots. You know, I got to choose the boots. You know, I think shoes are always important as an actor. You gotta love the shoes you like. But I always joked about like dressing up as Constantine. Or do you know like Bryan Cranston went to San Diego Comic-Con one day and wore a mask of himself, maybe to wear like if Constantine had continued for ages, turn up with like a Constantine mask or something in the Constantine outfit, and then that would have been fun. Yeah.
Awesome. So we got a few minutes left before we have to wrap it up. Okay, I just wanted to ask, because I saw this quote that you had said online, and I want to know if you can confirm or deny.
Okay.
Okay, it's about Michael Keaton. You being a fan of Michael Keaton, yes? Okay, so basically you said that you think he's awesome, he's an awesome actor, you like Beetlejuice, and you love Tim Burton. So I want to know, what is it about like Tim Burton's fantasy world that you love so much?
He's such an original artist and auteur, such a so creative and imaginative, and growing up with looking at these wonderful things that he created visually, such huge influences to me, and I'm sure to anybody who loves anybody like Quentin Tarantino is such an influence, right? He's such an amazing, unique director, and Tim Burton has this, uniqueness. There's Tim Burton, and then there's the people who try to be like Tim Burton, and I think that what I love about like artists is like how unique they can be and individual, and kind of the visions that they can bring to the screen or as actors. Like I think Johnny Depp has that with his uniqueness, and lots of other artists. So yeah, I always just like things that were a little bit like off and not conventional, and his imagination, like where'd you get that? And then that kind of allows you to use your imagination too. So it kind of opens a door for you to allow yourself to be as imaginative as you can be. Yeah. So it's, yeah.
And since this is kind of like the best time of the year, all things spooky, all things Halloween. Beetlejuice is a movie like I watch year round, but especially now. Do you have any Halloween traditions, things that you like to particularly do around this time of year?
Do you know what's funny? Because Halloween in this country is absolutely bonkers, right? Like, I can remember being in New York City once and going to the East Village. I was like, oh my God. And in the UK, it's not as big as a thing. But what we have is on the 5th of November, we have something called Bonfire Day, which is about when the Catholics tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament. And you go around with this Guy Fawkes night, right? So we have like Halloween, which is kind of big, but then there's 5 days later, there's Guy Fawkes night. And it always used to be Guy Fawkes night for me, because what you would do is you'd walk around with a wheelbarrow with a doll in it and say penny for the guy, and then at the end of the night, you'd all burn the guy, all burn the doll you've made, and you know, yeah, it's really crazy. Yeah, and it's based on when Guy Fawkes tried to burn down the Houses of Parliament with gunpowder, the gunpowder plot. I actually did a bunch of plays about that in the Royal Shakespeare Company years ago. But yeah, so for me, Guy Fawkes night is normally bigger than Halloween. But like watching scary movies and like I want to see Beetlejuice. Not I haven't seen it yet, so I'm looking forward to that.
We get it. You're busy. You're
Yeah.
traveling all over. So before we do wrap it up and take a big group picture with anybody, any thoughts you want to leave us with here this afternoon?
No, just thank you for having me in Miami, all you guys. It's great to be here. I'm having a great time, and happy Halloween.
Yeah, and happy early Guy Fawkes Day.
Yeah.
Is it
Oh,
bad?
listen, I just came from London. It's a lot worse there. At least it's warm here. You know, in London it was freezing, absolutely freezing. So I'm good.
All right, well, let's take a picture.
Yeah,
We got
thank you,
our
guys.
photographer. If you guys want to come to the stage, just not on the stage, and we're going to